In a wooden house on the edge of the Louisiana woods, the scent of wax and smoke mingled with something else, sweeter, yet more metallic. People still bought his candles every Halloween, saying they burned long, glowed softly, and smelled like their lost loved ones. One year, the candlemaker burned to death in his own workshop. When the police cleared the scene, they counted more than 30 candles still burning, each one carved with the name of someone from the town. No, The town of Belchane nestled beside the Louisiana swamps, where the mornings were thick with mist and the evenings heavy with damp decay. Each autumn, fog lingered until noon, cloaking the weathered wooden roofs and rusted fences. Along the dirt road leading to the edge of the woods stood an old house with a sagging porch, its only light coming from dozens of flickering candles behind the window panes. The townsfolk called it Moreau's Candle Workshop. Elias Moreau had lived there for nearly 20 years. He rarely left his home, appearing only a few times each month, carrying a basket of candles wrapped in brown cloth to deliver to the store in town. People said he was the last person who still knew how to make candles by hand, the old way, using beeswax and formulas long forgotten. Some even swore that Elias's candles not only burned longer, but also gave off a sweet, untraceable scent, like the smell of memory itself. Inside the house, Elias worked in silence. The narrow room was filled with wooden shelves dusted in wax, and candle wicks hung from hooks like dried cords. The pale yellow light danced on the walls, casting warped shadows that moved to the rhythm of the flames. He moved slowly, hands trembling as he stirred the hot wax, his eyes lost in the rising haze. The air was thick with wax, smoke, and something else, sweeter, sharper, clinging to his hair and clothes. On the old wooden table, among dozens of human-shaped candle molds, lay a small photograph. A young woman and a little boy standing beside a lake, their smiles blurred by time. Next to the photo, 2 candles carved with the names Marie and Julianne burned every night, though Elias never replaced the wicks, he said. Or perhaps only whispered to himself that the light kept them close. Outside, the swamp murmured its familiar sounds. The buzz of insects, the drip of water, the wind weaving through the old oaks. Each night, the town was left with only the glow from Elias's candles, trembling across the still surface of the water like a golden shiver. People said that if you passed by his house at midnight, you could hear faint murmurs, like prayers or voices answering from within the fire. Elias Moreau lived between light and shadow, between the scent of wax and the weight of memory. To the town, he was a harmless eccentric, but to himself, he was the keeper of candles and of the souls
Did you hear
that
what happened
refused
down
to
by
leave.
the river?
I heard they found another one. It must be
That
the
year,
curse.
Halloween came earlier
We
than
cannot stay
usual.
here.
The
It is
fog
not
still
safe.
clung thickly to the town
Where
of
else can we
Belchane,
go?
but the
They
air
are
itself
everywhere.
seemed heavier, saturated with a strange scent that drifted through every house and narrow alley. People said the wind carried it from the direction of the swamp, from beneath the old forest canopy where Elias Moreau's house stood hidden. At Clara Dubois' general store, Elias's candles were always the best sellers. They sat on a separate shelf, wrapped in brown
Be careful
paper
what you
and
say.
tied with coarse
The walls
twine.
have ears tonight.
When lit,
I understand.
their glow wasn't a
We will
harsh
speak
yellow, but a
later.
soft amber, like the last light of sunset. A light that made the whole room feel warmer. But this time, customers said something was different. The light was still beautiful, yet the scent was unsettling. Sweet, heavy, and beneath the melting wax lingered a faint trace, like human skin that had just met fire. Rumors spread, as they always did in small towns. Some claimed Elias's candles were enchanted, that if you burned one on Halloween night, you could feel the presence of a departed loved one returning. Clara heard the gossip and thought of her mother, who had passed away that summer. On a rainy night, she lit a candle from the new batch. The golden light fell upon the framed photograph on her shelf. She smelled jasmine, her mother's favorite perfume, and for a fleeting moment, Clara thought she heard footsteps creaking across the old wooden floor. The next morning, stories like hers filled the town. Someone said their candle's wax melted into the shape of a face. Another swore they heard whispers from within the flame. Sheriff Clay Benoit, long accustomed to Belchène's superstitions, began to take notice when that strange scent followed him all the way back to his office. He knew only one man in the parish still made candles by hand: Elias Moreau. Meanwhile, inside the wooden house, Elias kept working, unaware of the whispers spreading beyond the trees. He mixed wax, poured it into molds, his hands darkened by soot. Each time a candle hardened, he carved a name into it. Sometimes someone from town, sometimes a name he had only just recalled from a dream. In the flickering light, the lines on his face deepened, as if his skin itself had been molded from wax. When night fell, that scent returned again, seeping into the fog, carried by the wind, slipping through cracks in doors and windows. Those who had ever burned one of Elias's candles said the flames never truly went out, even when doused with water. Some said it was the candlemaker's gift. Others whispered that the candles burned brighter each time someone in town went missing. 3 days after the rumors swept through Belchène, Sheriff Clay Benoit decided to visit the home of Elias Moreau. A light rain was falling, and the sky hung low and gray, the color of melted wax. The dirt road through the swamp was slick, reeking of moss, rot, and the carcasses of animals trapped too long in the water. From a distance, Benoit saw the old wooden house with its familiar faint glow through the window, a light that never went out. As he drew closer, the smell hit him, that same sweet, metallic scent, only stronger now. The scent of Elias's candles. But this time, it no longer carried warmth. It was the sour breath of something decaying. The door stood ajar, and through the crack Benoit saw hundreds of half-burned candles. Their flames danced wildly, casting twisted shadows that crawled across the walls. Inside, the workshop looked like a chapel of fire. Dozens of wooden racks were piled high with molds, candle wicks and glass jars filled with thick, murky liquid. On the work table, small human-shaped candles stood in neat rows, each one eerily detailed. Wrinkles on the brow, a scar on the lip, eyelids gently closed. Every figure bore a name carved at its base. Benoit recognized some of them, people who had disappeared from Belchène over the years. A chill ran down his spine. In the corner of the room, one floorboard sat slightly raised. When he pressed down, a hollow sound echoed beneath it. A small hatch covered with an old iron plate. From below came a wave of heat and a stench, sharp and acrid, like wax mixed with burnt flesh. Benoit pried the hatch open and descended. The wooden steps creaked under his boots, leading into a low, narrow cellar barely tall enough for him to stoop through. The light from his oil lantern flickered against rows of glass jars lining the walls. Inside each jar floated a cloudy, waxy substance, within which were bits that hadn't fully dissolved. Strands of hair, pieces of nail, sometimes what looked like a small bone fragment. In the center of the cellar sat a massive copper cauldron, embers still glowing faintly beneath it. On its rim, half hidden by soot, were the words, etched in Latin. Lux in carne, light within flesh. Behind the cauldron lay a thick, charred notebook, its first pages written in a neat, slanted hand. Benoit recognized Elias' writing. They say light is salvation. I only help them stay. When flesh and soul are cast as one, the flame remembers in their stead. Ah! The later pages were stained with wax, listing names, batches of candles, and notes scrawled beside them. Fat, pure enough. Scent aligned. Soul not yet departed. Benoit stood frozen, hearing only the pounding of his own heart. Then, from above, came a faint sound. Slow, dragging footsteps. The lantern flame quivered, throwing trembling light onto the damp wall. Something moved in the darkness. A figure of wax, half melted, half whole, its hollow sockets glinting with reflected fire. A cold wind rushed through the cellar. The lantern went out. In the suffocating dark, Benoit felt dozens of unseen eyes upon him. Not the eyes of the living, but of souls imprisoned in the light of candles. On the floor near his feet, a new candle burned, its flame small and pale blue, trembling like breath. On its body, freshly carved into soft wax, was a single name. Clay Benoit. That Halloween night, the town of Belchane lay beneath a fog so thick that even the streetlights were reduced to dim, wavering orbs. No one could recall when the sky had begun to darken, only that the chill had come earlier than usual, and the scent of burning wax drifted through the air like an omen. From the church to the town square, candles were lit in preparation for the midnight procession. Most of them were Elias Moreau's, smooth, fragrant, and burning with an unnervingly steady flame. As the light spread, Belchane shimmered in a warm golden glow, as if the entire town had been gathered into a single gentle embrace of light. But a few noticed something strange. Every candle gave off a different scent. Some smelled faintly of tobacco. Others carried the familiar fragrance of someone long gone. One person began to cry without knowing why. At the edge of town, Elias's wooden house blazed with light. Inside, he had arranged hundreds of candles around the workshop, each one carved with a name, a face, a memory. Old memorial candles, new commissions, forgotten orders, all were lit. Flames danced on the walls, where the shadows of people seemed to stir within the trembling glow. Elias, dressed in a wax-stained cloak, stood at the center of the inferno. His face was pale, his eyes hollow as caverns. He murmured words from his old notebook, his voice merging with the hiss and pop of the candles. The light keeps them near. The light never dies. Beshi, one da, oka. Thick waves of smoke curled upward, gliding across the ceiling and brushing against the photo frames hidden in the dark. Portraits of his wife, his son, and dozens of others from the town. All of them arranged neatly, all gazing toward the great cauldron of boiling wax. Outside, Sheriff Clay Benoit stood on the porch, clutching his oil lamp. He had returned after 3 sleepless days since discovering the cellar, haunted by what he'd seen. From where he stood, the light inside seemed alive, twisting and breathing, and through the smoke he could hear whispers, like voices calling from the fire. There was no longer any doubt. Elias was completing his ritual. The door burst open, spewing a wave of blistering smoke. Benoit saw Elias kneeling in the middle of the room, hands raised in prayer, surrounded by candles that reached his chest, their flames glowing in eerie blue. Beneath him, the melted wax flowed into a perfect circle, spreading like blood. The walls trembled. The human-shaped candles began to soften, their faces melting, merging into one vast, blinding mass of light. The fire spread faster than Benoit could move. He stumbled back as the wind from the swamp howled through, tearing at the roof. The wood cracked and screamed, and the house erupted in a single roar of flame. Inside, Elias did not move. His eyes reflected the inferno, and just before the fire consumed him, he smiled. The people of Belchane saw the column of smoke rising from the edge of town, thick, black, and heavy as sin. They rushed into the streets, thinking it an accident, but none dared approach. The fire burned through the night, unquenchable, immune even to the rain. When dawn came, nothing remained but the charred skeleton of the house and a thin layer of hardened wax coating the earth, smooth and pale as skin. No one ever found the body of Elias Moreau. Only ashes, shards of broken molds, and the lingering sweet, acrid scent that never left the swamp. Nanorli. 2 weeks after the fire, Belchane slowly returned to its familiar quiet. The autumn wind carried the damp breath of the swamp, settling a new layer of green moss across rooftops. No one spoke the name Elias Moreau anymore, though his burned house still stood like a scar in the middle of the blackened clearing, a wound that refused to heal. The police called the fire an accident caused by gas pressure, a polite way of describing something they couldn't explain. But Sheriff Clay Benoit knew better. On sleepless nights, he still caught the scent of burning wax, sweet and metallic, seeping through his window even when the wind blew the other way. When the townsfolk cleared the ruins, they found 30 candles, untouched amid the ashes. They had not melted, though the house around them had burned to nothing. Each candle bore a name, the names of Belchane's residents, living and dead alike. The candles were brought to the church and sealed inside a wooden chest. But that night, the priest swore the inside of the chest began to glow, and the candles burned on their own, though no hand had lit them. A year later, on Halloween night, the fog returned. Up on the southern hill, among the gravestones, people saw faint blue lights flickering between the crosses, candles burning without wicks, without wax, without wind. Children said they heard soft singing among the trees, voices whispering their names from the dark. Sheriff Benoit grew old. His hair turned silver, his eyes dimmed. In his desk drawer, he still kept one of Elias's candles, a gift from long ago. He'd tried to throw it away many times, yet each time he opened the drawer, it was there again, cold as stone, the name Clay Benoit still carved into its body. Sometimes, when he was tired, a faint light would pulse from within it, like the rhythm of a quiet breath. He no longer tried to snuff it out. Perhaps, he thought, a part of Elias had never left. And maybe a part of him had been taken by that same flame. Years later, a stranger came to Belchane, a young man with dark hair, saying he wished to rent the old plot of land by the woods. He introduced himself as Moreau, a distant relative of the candlemaker. People laughed. Belchane had long forgotten such stories. That first night, lights shone from the newly built wooden house. The glow was golden, gentle, and the air filled once again with that familiar sweet scent that drifted through the forest. They say that if you walk by the swamp that night, you can see a line of candles burning along the water's edge, their reflections trembling on the black surface of the lake. They do not fade, do not cool, and no wind can make them flicker. The light remains, as if Elias Moreau never truly left Belle Chasse. No.